Now we get to some very transformational things. So Thomas Kuhn, in The Structure of Scientific Revolution, he introduces this idea of the paradigm shift. And what he notes is that when a new paradigm comes along, it's embraced by the youth.
Yeah.
Or
all the people who had the old paradigm
and
die.
the only reason the adults ever embrace it is a war. So, you know, and there's the famous phrase, science advances one funeral at a time,
exactly.
right?
Yes.
So we're waiting for the old guard to die, but the one time when it's possible for an old dog to learn new tricks, if you will, is when there's a war. So when I first saw Bitcoin, it was 2013, I was fascinated by Apple, fascinated by Amazon, making a lot of money in my private investments. That was my tech ride. And I was working hard in my business, and I had 20 things that I thought I was going to do to fix that business. And I looked at Bitcoin. I was like, well, this is an interesting thing, some decentralized monetary system. But, right around then, the government shut down. There was an online betting site called Trade Sports. And you could go and you could bet on the outcome of anything. You could bet on the outcome of elections. You could bet on sports. You could bet on whether it's going to rain. And it was kind of a cool idea. The government shut it down because a lot of times when remember they shut down online gambling. I was watching this in 2013. I looked at Bitcoin and I tweeted very famously. This is back when I tweeted, but no one cared. So I aired my opinion, and my opinion was, Bitcoin's interesting, but I think it's going to go the way of online gambling. Okay.
Oh, you think it'd be shut down?
I thought it was going to be shut down.
Oh, yeah.
I dismissed
well, that
it.
was a likely outcome.
And in my defense, right, a lot of good arguments why, and it wasn't until 2014 that the IRS designated Bitcoin as property. 2013, it was unclear what it was going to be designated as. But in any event, I did it. I forgot about it for the next 7 years. I went off, and we roll into March of 2020. And in March of 2020, this entire COVID thing developed, right? So first, the world shut down, and I'm not happy about it, and I don't agree with it. And the second thing that happens is we all go remote. And the third thing that happens is all of the big tech companies, the Amazons, the Microsofts, their number one disadvantage in recruiting away our employees is all of our employees would have to get up, move across the country, take their kids out of their school, sell their house, and their wife would probably have to get a new job, or their husband have to get a new job. And our advantage was we had a tight group, and we all had lunch together, and we met in the office, and we had a face-to-face community. So imagine how you feel when your best engineer is basically sitting at a house in Arlington or Vienna, and they can simply point their computer to a Microsoft server, change jobs, get a pay raise. All these mega companies are going to steal all my employees. And if they hire away all my engineers, then maybe my product's good now. I have a better product, but I'm fighting against monster corporations with a better product, but I'm not going to be better once they've hired my best engineers away, and they're going to slurp them, off. So the company had one more ace. The thing that we had in our back pocket that kept us, that we had relied on, was we had $500 million in cash. I have 2,000 hardworking employees. I have an operating business that's a cash cow, and I have $500 million in cash. And that cash, in the best period, back in 2010, just before the great financial crisis, or, in that range, interest rates got to 5%, 5.5%. And, maybe you could make $25 million a year on that. And then interest rates got hammered down. The central bankers kept printing money, and they actually forced the interest rates down. I didn't understand that they were manipulating the interest rates to make them lower during that decade. I was a techie. I would say I was very technically sophisticated, and I was very good at running a business. I was in the category of work very, very hard and know my business. But what I didn't understand was money. And I didn't understand banking, and I didn't realize that as hard as I was working, they were taking it out the back door through inflation. So the interest rates are maybe 2.5% as we roll into the year. And here's what happened. COVID lockdown takes place. There's a massive panic. All of these stocks crash because we're shutting down the world for the next 2 years. Of course they should crash. And, the administration looks at it and the hue and cry comes from the mainstream media and from the leaders in business and from the politicians, lower the interest rates. So Jerome Powell turns around and lowers the interest rates and lowers the interest rates, and pretty soon we've got interest rates going from 250 basis points, like overnight rates, to zero. Well, what happens to the stock market? And this is the most perverse thing imaginable. By the summer of 2020, all of the stocks have recovered. It's like, oh, we had a crisis, but we solved it by taking the interest rate to zero. We printed money. And the stocks recover. Amazon's recovered, Apple's recovered, Disney is trading higher. People are basically taking Disney up to double, and they're trading it based upon forward expectations of Disney streaming video revenue in year 2024. And I'm watching this. And this was what happened in 2020, I would characterize as a bifurcation of Main Street and Wall Street. What you saw was Main Street was destroyed by these policies, right? Main Street got shut down. The private manufacturer, the person that works with their hands, the guy that shows up, the small business, the mid-sized business. This is the Trump constituency, by the way. These people get destroyed, right? And they're wiped out. Like, okay, it's illegal for you to open your gym. You're going to jail if you go to work. Okay? Yeah. And then Wall Street was, you got guys running $5 billion equity investment funds living in New York and the Hamptons. They had the best year of their life, Jordan. 2020 was the best year in 30 years for these investors. They're making, all you had to do was be holding the stocks or playing the market. When interest rates go to zero, the P to E of any company that generates cash it doubles, it triples. The cap rates on real estate doubled. So the perverse irony is you own a building, no one's in it, the value of the building doubles in 4 weeks. You're owning a company, all the customers are being bankrupted, the value of the company doubles. So what happened was the government printed money. We had hyperinflation, not in consumer products, not in producer products. We had hyperinflation in financial assets. That hyperinflation meant that the stock market rallied, real estate rallied. If you owned a portfolio of real estate or portfolio of stock, you got rich. And the thought that I had, which is, this investment manager sitting on his floaty at his house in the Hamptons is having the best year of his life, and I'm having the worst year of my life. He's not working at all. He's literally not working at all. He's watching television, getting rich, taking high fives. And I'm watching all these people I care about wiped out, destroyed, jailed, abused, bankrupted, fired, stripped of all hope. And then I have this $500 million asset and the interest rates go to zero. And Jerome Powell goes on television and he gives a speech. And these are his words. We've taken interest rates to zero. I'm not even thinking about raising interest rates to the year 2024. But my observation was, I had an asset, it's now non-performing. You know, my finance is non-performing, my equity is dead in the water, my chances of turning this around are zero because after doing 100 things for a decade, they're zero. My human capital is about to be stripped away. And so I have a choice between a fast death or a slow death. And so it was time to make a decision to choose a side. And I felt like if I give the money back to the shareholders, conventional wisdom is, give the capital back to the shareholders because you idiot, you're getting 0% interest and us brilliant investors are getting, S&P's up 25% this year. Okay, so I could just give the money away. Well, I took 30 years to accumulate the money. Why should I give up 30 years of my life? 2,000 people did a million things right and I'm just going to give it up and slink into my hole and disappear from history. And I thought, that's not very appealing. Well, I can keep the money at 0% interest, but I'm boiling, right? The environment is boiling my employees off, and it's a slow death, not a fast death, but it's a slow, certain death. Or I can fight, right? And so paradigm shift, war. It wasn't the war on COVID, it was the war on currency combined with the war on COVID.